Welcome to Change the Conversation. I'm Natalia Loback, founder and principal of Chart House Advisory Services, and we're back with Michael Schiel. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it.
So, as a reminder, Michael is a certified high-performance coach and transformation consultant. And where we left off last time was we were talking about, these really complex organizations, the political environment, and what solutions or what can you do if you are a manager and a transformation project lands on your desk? What kind of options do you have? And I love this question because that's how I got started in change. I was that manager. I got stuff plunked on my desk all the time, and because I had a knack and an interest in it, I just kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. But this happens every day. And can you tell me a little bit about sort of how and why that happens in public sector or even other organizations?
Well, for sure. This happens almost all of my clients. This ends up happening in the background at the beginning before they call me. So it's because within a public sector setting, so it could be a community organization, hospitals have a little more funding, but they still have the same sort of challenge, provincial ministry. You don't have the funding to hire somebody who is a transformation expert or a change management expert necessarily all the time. Sometimes you can get some project funding, often you can't. And often, even if you can, you've got the problem now. And so what do we do about it? And so, if you're the senior manager there, you turn to somebody who's effective on your team and say, here, deal with this. And then that person has to figure out, okay, I've never done a transformation project before, or a change project before. Where do I start? What do I do? And that situation comes up probably daily. Yeah.
It's incredible. And I remember when I was I remember being that person and having this plunked on my desk. And I'm trying to think of what I did to solve the problem. One of the things that I started to do was make that political environment visible. You talked about the example of, going to two senior managers because they're the ones who get things done.
Right.
That was also something that, I started to do. And seeking out as much information as I could find, and I think too, when you're in that position, trusting your instincts and really understanding those relationships that you have are probably the ones that are going to help you be successful. And so leaning into that, even though you feel maybe like a fish out of water, you don't know what you're doing. And as a hint, if you are that person, Michael and I might be able to help with that. So certainly check out our material, sign up for our newsletters. We provide great content all the time to help out people who find themselves in those types of situations.
I actually just wrote a blog about this, just a couple of weeks ago, about this very topic.
Amazing.
Yeah. So funny that you would ask this. So I generally, and actually I've been asked this before by clients who don't necessarily want to engage a consultant quite yet. What can I do? And so there's a couple of things that you can actually do. Number one, this happens a lot actually, is you can ask somebody else in your in your community of an organization like you that has gone through this thing before. Because I can guarantee you somebody else has gone through this. I gave an example before of an organization that had their funding cut, and yet they were still asked at the same time by their funder to support more clients. That happens everywhere across the community and broader public sector. So think about, is there another organization that's done this? And then you just reach out to them. And that's part of my bag of tricks too that I do when I work with clients, is I say, well, who else do you know who has gone through this, and what do you want to learn from them? And so you can do that. Number two, and this sounds so funny saying this, is I'll ask the manager who's talking to me, have you actually talked to the staff who do that service, who provide that service? Because they kind of know what's happening, what's working well and what's not. And sometimes they have it. Often they have, but sometimes they haven't. So that's another way to look at it, is like that. And then finally, the most important thing I think is getting the framework and the set of activities and tools that you need to do. And this is where, if you don't have the training, this is where I think someone like yourself or myself, where you can at least get the framework of, here's how to do a transformation project, here's the steps you need to do. And it surprises me that so many people think that it's like rocket science and it's really difficult, but it's not, right? Like it's some basic concepts that you and I have learned after doing it thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And that's the kind of thing that I think can help them out too, is just knowing there is a simple way to do this. You don't have to be a PhD, you can do this.
Yeah, and I think I echo that message. Like, you can do it. It's possible. It's achievable. Something else, I loved the three pieces of advice that you offered, Michael. One thing I'd add is ask for the stories about change in your organization. Ask for those stories and see what you can learn from them, because you're definitely going to hear a story about how change went well, and you're also going to hear at least one story about how change went poorly. And there's an incredible amount of learning that you can glean from a simple conversation about what went well, what didn't go well. Tell me a story.
Great point.
That then you can learn from.
There's, as you were talking, it just reminded me, there's an author, Keith Ferrazzi. He's got a book on shared leadership, and he points out sort of the concept of make your bed before you need to sleep in it. So when you're in an organization, I think about this all the time for community organizations. When you're in an organization and you're given a project and you need to make change happen, but you don't have any staff under you, and somehow you've got to get staff from other departments and units to work with you on something. So this is where the concept of shared leadership, that if you don't have authority or power, you still need to be able to figure out, how can I engage other people in my organization to work with me and achieve this goal, even when they're not going to get paid for that. And so I think that's an important thing to think about too. So even if you don't have that transformation or that change project now, you might eventually. So it's useful thinking about, how do I cultivate those relationships and be a leader in my own right within my own organization, wherever I am in that organization.
I love that. And that concept of shared leadership, and that concept of, in this particular initiative, I am a leader, and my, one of the most important things that I'm going to do is to rally people to work with me, regardless of my position, regardless of my authority within this organization or community.
Yeah.
I love that. And I'll make sure I link that for our viewers as well, so they can find that resource that you mentioned.
Yeah, no, it's, that's a concept that actually, as I do transformation projects with community organization, it seems to come up a lot because you're so restricted. And so one of the ways you can work around that is be creative and innovative and get the most out of your staff. And you put in place the processes and the culture to allow people to come up and do their many projects the way that they can, transformation projects here or there. So it's a culture of allowing them to be a leader, even if they're not at the senior levels of the organization.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael, for speaking with me today. And I look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you so much for having me. I just love this topic. It's so important.